Goedenavond, dames en heren. Welkom in Bimhuis op het openingsconcert van het nieuwe seizoen. Heel goed dat u er bent. En dit nieuwe seizoen gaan we ook net als afgelopen seizoen af en toe interviews doen met de muzikanten op het podium. En daar kun je dus gewoon bij zijn zoals u als je een beetje op tijd bent. En hopelijk geeft het dan wat extra's aan het concert. De interviews die worden ook opgenomen, net als het concert, op Bimhuis TV. Dus als u hier bent en denkt van het is fantastisch, kun je het altijd terugkijken. Gaan we naar de site van Bimhuis. En daar zijn ook nog veel meer concerten te vinden die je misschien gemist hebt en alles. Dus dat is ook iets nieuws bij het Bimhuis, Bimhuis TV. Nou, vanavond een hele bijzondere band waar wij hier bij het Bimhuis allemaal naar uitzien. Ik ben Koen Schouten trouwens. Van een held die heel vaak in Bimhuis heeft gespeeld, in het oude Bimhuis. Ook met de impro-scene van het oude Bimhuis, Michel Mengelberg, met John Burgin, met Tristan Honsinger, met iedereen speelde die altijd. En dat was vaak spectaculair. Ik heb het over Louis Moholo-Moholo. Zijn achternaam is dubbel tegenwoordig, want dat is eigenlijk de manier waarop je die naam moet hebben als je uit Zuid-Afrika komt. En hij is jaar of 15 geleden weer teruggegaan naar Zuid-Afrika. Hij heeft heel lang in Londen gewoond. Daar gaan we het over hebben met 2 mensen uit zijn band. En dat zijn op zich ook alweer waanzinnige helden uit de Londense jazzscene. Alexander Hawkins, pianist, die is berucht vanwege zijn waanzinnige soloconcerten. Hij heeft ook een heel mooi duo met Evan Parker, ook zo'n Britse free jazz held. En hij speelt ook bijvoorbeeld in de band van de Ethiopische muzikale held Mulatu Astatke. Dus hij komt hier samen met Shabaka Hutchings, die eigenlijk als een comet omhoog is geschoten de laatste jaren. En dat is natuurlijk logisch, want als een van je bent The Comet is Coming heet, dan gaat het zo. Hij heeft natuurlijk ook Shabaka and the Ancestors en Sons of Kemet. Dames en heren, graag applaus voor Alexander Hawkins en Shabaka Hutchings. Welcome, gentlemen. Good you're here. Good you're here. Thanks for taking the time. Actually, I'd like to start off with a picture of you, the two of you in action. How long do you know each other, actually?
I think we met around the time that I started doing the London Improvisers Orchestra. So I think the first time that I saw you play was in Foyle's bookshop with Steve Beresford and Lol Coxhill.
That could be right. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Steve had basically heard me do a ZU gig in the same Foyle's bookshop that was doing little gigs. And then he invited me to come to the London Improvisers Orchestra.
That's
and
right.
then used to start inviting me to gigs that he was doing. So that's when I first bumped into Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been maybe 12 years ago now. Maybe a bit more.
Right.
And then we sort of played on and off in, well, various things would come up. I had a sextet which played sort of semi-regularly. It was difficult to get everyone together for that band, but we played fairly regularly, and that on and off for, I guess, 6 or 7 years. And then, things would come, you know. And then also with Louis in recent years. So.
Right. And Mulatu.
And Mulatu, of course, that in fact,
With who? Sorry for the audience.
Right.
Oh, with Mulatu Astatke.
With
in fact, the
Mulatu
first
Astatke.
tour. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
You were playing a different saxophone there, Shabaka.
Yeah.
It's the one you have now, is it reasonably new? Or?
Yeah, so the one I've got now is made by a guy called Dave Walker, who's an instrument maker in Leeds. And he started developing his own type of saxophone in collaboration with myself and Pete Wareham. Who plays an acoustic Ladyland and Make Yourself Down. And what he did is he bought and reconfigured a factory in the Czech Republic that had been making Armati saxophones. So it started with Koen. Then they had a really bad business model and started making beginner student horns, but really good quality. But no one knew that they were good quality unless you really knew Armati horns. So he bought the factory and had all the workers, has them make parts for other companies that are more established. And he's been making his own saxophone, slowly for the last 5 years, giving me it and I give him feedback from the road. This was a Selma cigar cutter. I think from like 1936,
Right.
that I used on the Ancestors record as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you play them on different gigs. You play different saxophone.
No, in different periods of my life. So
Okay.
this is the period of Dave Walker. That was the cigar cutter period. Before it was the Con 10M period, and after was the Selma super balanced action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
What
before
is,
I got Dave.
what is if you describe the period of your life now, and in relation to the saxophone, the sound of the saxophone, what is now your period? The period you're in.
The period I'm in is ease and efficiency, but creating a greater intensity. So say a previous period might have been force and pure energy creating efficiency, or what I see as beauty, or just doing something. Whereas I think now the amalgamation of a saxophone that allows me to just play easily across the whole register. And with me actually doing so many gigs that I need to not be struggling. I need to be able to focus everything towards a bigger musical picture than the equipment that I'm using.
Okay, yeah. What period are you in, Alexander?
Well, you know, this is one of the big differences between us as piano players, because when we turn up, you have to make friends with the instrument in the course of the sound check. And so the discipline is a bit different for us. You make friends with the instrument. You maybe search out the idiosyncrasies if there are any. I mean, obviously, a beautiful instrument like this, the Steinway D, they're pretty standard wherever you meet them in the world. Although some are nicer than others. But so it's a different discipline. So we have to sort of celebrate the idiosyncrasies of instruments, and in improvised music, you can deal with that to a much greater extent.
And if you would have to make a solo record right now, what kind of piano would you choose?
Oh well, I made one last year, which is out earlier this year on Intact Records, and that was recorded via Intact in the radio studio in Zurich, where they had an oldish, late 60s, early 70s Steinways, particularly beautiful, and so that's what I made it on. And I actually studied on an instrument not dissimilar to that, so that's an instrument I particularly like. But we become adept as piano players at making friends with what we're confronted with. So beggars can't be choosers.
We're here to talk about this man. Did you know this picture?
Yeah.
When Shabaka, what was the first moment you were confronted with Louis Moholo-Moholo? Are we going to say Louis Moholo for the interview now? And later I will say Louis Moholo-Moholo in the when I announce the band. Okay.
I think the first time was a gig that Steve Beresford booked me for. So Steve was like my link to the free improvising world. And he just said, can you do a gig at the Vortex with me, this drummer from South Africa, Louis Moholo, and Guillaume Viltard from France.
Okay.
And I did, and it freaked me out. Like really, it really scared me.
Yeah. What was so scary?
Well, yeah, I had to write a piece from The Wire about it, if anyone wants to search the internet. But in a nutshell, it was unsettling because it felt like the music was a process of psychological manipulation.
Yeah.
So you have the music, you have what we're playing, and then you've got an added level of someone actually listening to you and trying to see if they can play with you, with like how you're going to react by being unsettled, and that unsettling could come from anything. You know? And I think Louis has this really good way of actually working out what actually unsettles you, not what's supposed to be, in terms of the orthodoxy, what's supposed to be out or what's supposed to be, free. He's got, he is free, so it's like he can do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, that definitely rings true. I mean, one of the kind of miracles of his playing is that at the same time, he's one of the most supportive drummers there is, and yet at that same time can be pushing you and disrupting and making stuff difficult and making you improvise. One of the things that's happened with us various times on gigs, sometimes he'll ask for the same tune again and again, just to put you in an uncomfortable space, just to see what you're going to do with it second time, see what you're going to do with it third time. And yet, he's more than many other musicians, solidarity and togetherness means everything to him, and so he'll play with you and he'll support you, but at the same time it's pushing you to find.
Right.
You know?
In some ways, like poetic, it's like it's fine to call for unity, unifying principles, but it's really what happens to your principles and your ideology in the midst of disruption.
Right.
You might be like, we want the band to be together, we want them to move on the same path. And Lewis is like, you need to see what your ideals look like while there is tension.
Right.
Not while there's harmony. Because then obviously when it does come into the period of harmony, there's a greater release. It's like those ideals are realized more fully.
Yeah, yeah. So it's something you can. It's inspiring, I guess, also in the rest of your life, not only your musical life.
Yeah.
To be with people like this, and maybe we can have a little a clip to see a little bit for people who don't know Louis Moholo that well, where he came from, because he came from South Africa, and there was a band, the Blue Notes, which was a legendary band in South Africa. And here's a little clip, and you see him also telling you a little bit about the circumstances at that time.
I would play with a white band behind the curtain, behind the stage. I couldn't be seen, you see, playing with white people. A lot of bands disbanded to this effect, and we thought, no, we're going to save this, and they're not going to dictate to us what to do, so we skipped South Africa.
Foremost amongst these groups were the Blue Notes, led by white pianist Chris McGregor. Their mix of township queller music and hard bop would transform British jazz.
London was the mecca of jazz then. Mecca, like Paris and London was the mecca of jazz, so we decided to come here for a challenge and for everything else. For London as well, like people have never had a trumpet player like Monges giving that energy. And people like Dudu was magic, Dudu. This McGregor, greatest composer, really. Piano player, fantastic.
There was a muscularity about their music, which I hadn't heard quite in the same way. And it was very different from American jazz. I mean, you could hear those African.
Can I just issue a little qualification to that? I think the narrator, I think I'm correct in saying this, so I hope the narrator said Chris was the leader of that band.
That is not correct.
That's not correct. They were a collective, and that's the traditional narrative coming through of, but they were a collective band. But yeah.
No, that is something that is, but actually, in another interview, Louis Moholo said also something about it, that at that time it was actually handy for them to have that there was a white person in the band, and that he was a bit in the front. Well, musically he wasn't, but that way they could get more gigs and they had more opportunities. But musically it was very equal.
It's interesting. I was speaking to both Django Bates and John Sermon about when the Blue Notes came to London, and both of them separately just said it was literally like an atomic bomb hit the music scene, because they were playing their music, and then all of a sudden you've got this group that's like blowing the roof off clubs, in a way that no one was really doing in terms of like the amount of actual energy, that they're trying to create, and then having the the Brotherhood of Breath take all the players in the scene at that time, and then bring them together as one massive collective. It's quite a period of time that was really I think what you see in terms of British jazz now, we shouldn't disconnect it from from that period, and that period was integral to the the settlement of the Blue Notes in London.
Because in '64 the Blue Notes had a gig in Antibes in France, and then they decided to save up money because they knew it was going to be a one-way ticket. They wanted to leave South Africa, and that was the way. So after the show in Antibes, they played on the streets and everything. After a while, I think Abdullah Ibrahim, Dollar Brand, he invited them to Zurich to play in a club a couple of weeks, and then they went to London.
And Ellington helped them as well, stay in Zurich. But yeah.
So this band is, for my feeling, also what you two are doing, and a lot of your colleagues, is actually it comes out of the moment the Blue Notes came to London for a part. And what is also funny is that in South Africa they played more American style jazz, but when they moved to London they started playing more South African music. Is this and we know it in Holland a lot because of the band of Chris McGregor, the pianist. He had another band, Brotherhood of Breath, and for example, Sean Bergen's band is inspired hugely on that band. This period, is there something I mean, as a kid, did you see this band? So how is it in London actually? Is it still known among musicians?
I mean, there's the live album that they made just before they came on a European tour live in, what was it, 64 or something?
64, yeah.
And that they are playing American jazz, but it just sounds amazing in a way that you're not hearing from Americans in that time period. There's a kind of raw, like a together raw kind of intensity. It's like they're trying to finish at the finishing line all together at full sprint, like literally going together. It's something that's in the spirit of the music that's very original, and it's very like idiosyncratic of the South African scene at that time as being separate, to the American scene. And I think, like, for instance, me hearing that album at the time that I needed it, which was maybe 10 years ago or something, it did change my approach. And I remember asking someone, who's the tenor player? Was it Nick Moyaki? And because his playing is amazing, and I tried to hear other things with him on, but there's not loads of recordings.
Yeah, he plays I Cover the Waterfront on that.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know this record, it's unbelievable. It's the Blue Notes in 1964, and Nick Moyaki plays this tenor feature on I Cover the Waterfront, which will just blow your mind. It's really astonishing good music.
After that, after the Blue Notes and the Brotherhood of Breath, in which Moholo played, he got really heavily into the European free jazz scene, and a lot of duos with Irene Schweitzer, for example, and also with Evan Parker. With you, you have a duo with Evan Parker as well.
Mike Osborne stuff is really great.
Oh yeah,
that trio like in Willisau.
And now there's this band called Five Blokes, and you're in it. How does this band work?
I mean, it's kind of unfortunate to ask two British guys about the functioning of a democratic system.
Maybe we can learn from you how not to do it.
My thing is this: you can do things together in a very literal way, and that's amazing. So if you're in James Brown's horn section, you want stuff to happen together in a very literal way, or Earth, Wind and Fire. This, but there's another kind of togetherness. So if you said to me, what did I do at the weekend? And I was like, I was with my girlfriend, and I was reading a book and she was watching a TV, and our cats were running around. But I say we did something together because it's a common enterprise. It doesn't mean we're doing the same thing. It doesn't mean we're all reading the same book or we're all watching TV. But there's that empathy, that sense of being together, doing things together, and a mutual trust to be doing different things at the same time. And I think that's something of what happens in this band. There's a freedom. There's kind of a mutual trust, crisscrossing this band are decades of relationships.
Right.
And so we can all be playing different tunes at the same time and then it will come together. Or it's a very fluid concept. Louis will maybe call the first tune of the set, and apart from that, we just go where it takes us.
Right.
So it's kind of a nice little microcosm of how people could organize themselves productively, you know, doing their own thing, but with a sense of solidarity and togetherness and mutual interdependence. And
Do we have many written out tunes or themes?
Well,
Because that you certainly play songs at certain moment.
it's like a songbook, I'd say.
Yeah.
At some stage I had music because I needed to learn the songs, and then after years go by, like I think everyone's learned all the tunes now, so it's like any tune can be called and we just know how the songs go.
Right.
But going back to that thing of like the kind of unit as we practice it, you know, how that reflects on social constructs. In some ways, the unit forces you to not have ideology. It forces you to listen to what's happening and react to it as you feel appropriate. You know, and your ideology is your principles as it stands right there in relation to what someone else is saying from their perspective, as opposed to holding on. Like for me, the enemy of this music is holding on to the preconception ideas of what you do, or what you're supposed to do, or what you can, you know, possibly do. Like once you let that go, and in the moment you're listening to what's happening and forming an opinion or a course, then that's, you know.
And also, like, I mean, you know, it's important not to idealize it too much. I mean, like in social situations, there are times at which you rely on habit. I mean, I'm very aware, you know, sometimes there are certain songs which transition really nicely in a certain way, and you find yourself looking for that You know, is that improvising? Nah, it's not clear. But so it's a real model of real life in that sense. You know, it would be nice to think we were all pure improvisers, but I think anyone that says they're improvising the whole time is not telling the truth.
Okay.
So you know, you come across those situations as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking forward a lot to the concert, gentlemen, or Blokes, I should say. And in about 10 minutes. We're going to start and we're going to call the band to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, let's thank these Blokes for their insights with a nice hand of applause. Alexander Hawkins Shabaka Hutchings.